Okay, today we're going to talk about secundal harmony. This is the last lecture for this unit. I'm going to turn this fan off. It's going to get hot in here. It's already hot, but whatevs. Okay, tone clusters, secundal harmony. We talked about how quartal and quintal harmony were an extension of tertial harmony, tertial meaning based on thirds or there's a nice chord, so and then quartal, fourths, quintal, fifths. We have basically one category of interval that we haven't used yet, and that's seconds. And so secundal harmony is harmony made up of seconds. Now you'll notice this will become a theme, that secundal harmony is in the category of a technique that babies and toddlers and young children like to use, but they're forbidden by their parents and music teachers. So you've all seen babies come up to a piano, and here, I'll point this down. You know what I'm talking about. You know, they start going like this. Let me see. They start going like this, right? And let me make this so that you can see better what I'm talking about. So I remember my oldest daughter, she's turning 30 this year, but when she was a baby, even before she could sit down, she figured out that she could lean up against the piano, and she had her fists and she tried to play notes on the white keys. She couldn't do it because her fists would press down too many notes for her strength. So then she figured out that she could get the job done on the black keys. Anyway, this is, of course, the most obvious way to play the piano, right? Is to actually just play notes. They're all next to each other. Why not? And of course, that was not done very much for a long period of time. And I would say, with a few exceptions, oops, let me turn it this way. With a few exceptions, the first composer to really explore secundal harmony or tone clusters was Charles Ives. And you remember that I've told you that Charles Ives is sort of the first in almost every technique that we learn this semester in 20th century theory. And that includes tone clusters. Lots of examples in his music. Now, he talks about the origin of his use of tone clusters. His father, George Ives, who I've talked in other lectures about, was a band leader. George Ives served, I believe, in the Civil War as a band leader. And he was Charles Ives' first music teacher, and he taught him all the instruments, including drums and drum rudiments. And he told his son that in the absence of a snare drum, you can do rudiments on the piano using your fists, and that'll give you kind of an approximation of the sound of a snare drum. So let's say a paradiddle, well, or so he kind of, that's what Charles Ives describes. So in his music that he composed as an adult, he found these useful for various means, much of the time trying to convey, as in most of his music, convey an image or a memory through musical sound. So I've included, if you look underneath, of course, the comments, etc., I'm going to give you some assignments. This is going to be a very short lecture, but I want you to click the links and watch the scrolling score pieces that I've included, because these will show you better than I can describe here what I'm talking about. So the first one I want you to look is the majority, and it's a song by Charles Ives, and I forget what year it was composed, but I think it's one of the very first pieces of music, published pieces of music, at least written earliest. This book of songs, 114 songs that it comes from, now I can't remember, I think it was published in the 1920s, but, and I don't remember the date of this piece, but one of the very earliest uses of tone clusters. And I'll kind of show you a few things here. You'll notice that, if this will show up, that here are some black key tone clusters. He didn't really have a way of notating these, and as we'll see later, Henry Cowell came up with more efficient ways of notating these. Here are some white key tone clusters. Again, not a super efficient way to notate them, but it works. You don't have to explain what it means. And of course, to play them, you can't use fingers. Well, you can with smaller ones, but you start to have to use the palm of your hand and then ultimately the arm. And of course, we're familiar with this kind of playing. If you want to, you can look at some videos of Little Richard or Jerry Lee Lewis playing the piano. They love to play tone clusters on the piano. Also, Thelonious Monk liked to use tone clusters. He liked to use his elbow to play them. Okay, so listen to that Ives piece, at least, let's say at least 3 minutes of it. Okay, then we move on to the composer that we most associate with tone clusters in secundal harmony. That would be Henry Cowell, who was younger than Ives, but he knew Ives, and he was a great promoter of Charles Ives's music. And I've included 2 pieces, and I would like you to look. There are 2 videos of the Tides of Manaunaun. This is a really cool piece, sort of the ultimate tone cluster piece, where Cowell is evoking the image of the creation, a creation myth from a Celtic creation myth, and sort of illustrating the tides of energy that went into creation of the universe, using the, these big tone clusters with the arm, the sort of white noise that results. The other cool thing about this is that Cowell he's got lots of different techniques for tone clusters. One of them is to play the cluster with the arm and then play a top note with a finger to bring out a melody. So something, I'm not very good at it, I'd have to work at it. You could use your right hand and bring out a bottom note, etc. So you'll see lots of those techniques, in the description of instructions are included in this video, the link that I've provided. So yes, Henry Cowell, very important composer. Dr. Hicks literally wrote the book on Henry Cowell. So we have lots of Henry Cowell activity at BYU. Then I've included one other Cowell piece, Tiger. I'd like you to listen to that. And by the way, the Tides of Manaunaun, I've included 2 videos, one with the score, one with someone playing it, and I'd like you to watch both. And then Tiger, which is 3 minutes, I'd like you to watch that one. That has lots of different techniques, and plus it has some quartal harmony. You'll see that, again, as with all of the techniques in this unit, it's going to be unusual to find pieces that stick only to one technique. They're going to use lots of other things, including conventional tonality or whatever. Okay, then I have included a Stockhausen, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, German composer, late 20th century composer into the 21st century. Very important German composer, interesting guy. I could talk about him a lot. And he wrote a series of pieces for piano, Klavierstück, and he numbered them, and each of them explores a different concept. The one that I've included, number 10, or Roman numeral 10, is sort of the ultimate tone cluster piece, and it includes tone clusters of different kinds, but also tone cluster glissandi. And he actually instructs the performer to wear fingerless gloves so that they don't hurt too much. So you get a glissando, and you know, move that up in there. It's notated very extensively. Now just listen to 3 minutes of that piece. Any 3 minutes, I think pretty much anywhere you'll get a picture, or you can skip around to kind of get an idea. If you want to listen to the whole thing, it's 22 minutes. That's even better. Okay, then I have included a piece that will certainly be, is well known. Actually, no, this is not well known. This is a composer that Dr. Hicks mentioned in the reading on Secundal Harmony, Krzysztof Penderecki, who just died within the last year, I think. The St. Luke's Passion. That's another one that's very long. It's an hour and 16 minutes. I would say click around the video so that you can kind of see the different uses of tone clusters. This is Penderecki also wrote a very famous piece called the Threnody to the Victims of Hiroshima that uses tone clusters. But the difference is that Penderecki liked to use quarter tone clusters. So instead of just, again, this is in the reading, but we have white key tone clusters. We have black key tone clusters, which are barely tone clusters, really. We have chromatic tone clusters. Well, Penderecki liked to use quarter tone clusters. So the intervals are so small that we stop really hearing the individual pitches, I would think, and it starts to approximate white noise. And once you get the interference, between the intervals, these very small intervals that are not just intervals, then you start to really get this miasma of noise. So skip around on the St. Luke's Passion to kind of see what Penderecki is up to. And then I've included a piece by Eric Whitaker, someone who's sort of beloved at BYU, certainly. The singers have sung a lot of and commissioned pieces from him. But this piece, When David Heard, has plenty of tone clusters in it, kind of showing you how, well, at least diatonic tone clusters, I don't think he uses chromatic tone clusters, have been used by more, sort of, how do I describe it? Less experimental composers, less avant-garde composers to create specific effects. And this will be familiar also. Lots of film music uses these kinds of sounds to create a sort of a more pretty, lush kind of sound. The other pieces tend to use them for more sort of dramatic or harrowing effects, I guess, or sort of exciting effects. And okay, so if you could go ahead and listen to those, and you know the rules, don't multitask, watch the score, take note. This should be interesting, this should be fun, this should be, you may not do this again, so take advantage of it. It's just like mortality, right? We have our pre-earth life and our afterlife, and those are quite different from mortality. Mortality has its opportunities and problems, so we should enjoy it. Same thing here. I don't know when you're going to take another, well, you may take, of course, another advanced class in 20th century music. I hope you do, and maybe go to grad school. But this particular exercise of really digging into these scores and pieces, focusing on secundal harmony, I don't know when you would do that. So really enjoy it. Again, this is a technique that doesn't have a lot of, technical theory other than just the idea of having chords that are made up of seconds instead of thirds, fourths, or fifths. And, And you know, here's several approaches to this. Okay, have fun.